Hi everyone, I'm Vinod and welcome to Career Board. I work as a faculty at IIT and I thought it's going to be fun to share my thoughts about IIT toppers from the past. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the toppers from year 2011 to 2022. I already created 4 videos on this topic, so if you have not seen them, please go forward and watch them. They're super illustrative in terms of what each person has done and what you can learn from them in terms of making career choices. 2011, the topper was Prudhvi Tej Immadi. Prithvi is interesting because he finished his degree in electrical and electronics engineering. If you watch one of my earlier videos, I would have mentioned that 2010 was a time of a recession, and people in 2010 and 2011 began taking electrical engineering, electronics engineering, thinking that it's a safe bridge between computer science and traditional disciplines. You can choose whatever you want to do. So Prithvi ends up choosing electrical and electronics engineering. He finishes his degree in 2015, goes on to work for Samsung Electronics for almost 2.5 years. And interestingly, after that, decides to apply for the Indian Administrative Service, gets in, and his rank was 24 in the IAS exam in his first attempt. And he's worked as sub-collector. Right now, he's a joint managing director of a transmission corporation in Andhra Pradesh. I think it's just amazing that someone again goes back, works outside India, decides to come back to India, and you're probably making very, very little as a IAS officer. In terms of early phases, you're probably making around 50,000-60,000 rupees a month, but all the other perks are taken care of. It's a far cry from making a hell lot of money. Like if you're working in Samsung Electronics, you're probably making around $120,000. Another interesting thing is that I led Samsung recruiting from 2011 to 2014. I was working out of Samsung Korea. So I decided the list of universities the company would recruit from. I created the onboarding process. It was my team which ended up creating all of this. And Samsung is a great place to be in, but again, a lot of people work in places like Samsung for a couple of years, then move on to do their PhDs abroad, go on to work in US companies, or in this case, come back to India. So again, kudos to Prithvi for making such a brave decision. 2012 was Arpit Agarwal. He went to IIT Delhi to do his computer science degree. So this is some of the last few people who went to IIT Delhi having gotten such a high rank, because after the year 2015 onward, there has been an enormous rush towards a computer science degree at IIT Bombay. So currently, not more than 2 or 3 people end up choosing IIT Delhi for the computer science program if they're in the top 100 ranks. Sarpit, after doing his undergrad, he's pretty much been working in tower research, and he's worked in Delhi for a couple of years, I think Delhi or Gurgaon, and then he's moved over to New York very recently. So he was among the highest scorers in the IIT JEE exam during his times. And again, he's has an interest in terms of jobs. So unlike some of the other toppers who have moved towards academia, looks like the toppers in the last 10 years have preferred jobs more than anything else. Sai Sandeep is an exact opposite of what I talked about earlier. So Sai finishes his degree in IIT Bombay, computer science degree, and then he's right now a PhD student at Carnegie Mellon University. Now, looking at his website of Carnegie Mellon University, it looks like just this year he finished his PhD. His thesis oral exam got over recently. So he should have graduated in 2017, and within 5 years has finished his PhD. That's just amazing. So Sai, again, he has topped multiple exams like the Andhra, the AIMSET exam, their state exams, and I think these are people who genuinely want to explore the field of computer science and expand their knowledge. So that's what people like Sai have done. And I really hope that people like him come back to India sometime in the future. So I'm looking forward to what he's going to do in the next couple of years. Chitraang is an example of a person who studied in IIT for a year, then dropped out and went to MIT. So this is a common trend. You will see that, again, if you looked at the videos of people in the 1990s and between 1980 to 1990, you will see that many people who go to MIT are people who have a lot of interest in physics. Many of them are International Physics Olympiad gold medalists, and they feel that going to MIT, they can actually specialize in physics. There's also a guy called Raghu Mahajan from, I think, the 2005 or 2006 IIT topper batch, and this person also actually ended up going to MIT to study further. So you will see a common trend in terms of somebody who is very, very interested in physics should probably pursue physics instead of doing computer science. And that's what people like Chitraang have done, studied for a year at IIT Bombay and then moved on to MIT. And he mentions here that he never really thought of going to MIT, but then after the Indian Physics Olympiad gold medal, JE rank, he decided to go outside and do his undergrad at MIT. So that's what's happened. And I think that because you have all these achievements like IIT rank 1, you have International Physics Olympiad, you already studied IIT Bombay for a year or two, right? Then it creates an impression that you're cut out and you can transfer to some of these top colleges in the US. And I think MIT specifically gives full scholarships to people who apply in this category. So that's encourages people to go over. So Chitraang has finished his undergrad in physics and currently doing his PhD at University of California, Berkeley. He's doing it in the physics department. So if you watch some of my earlier videos, I do talk a little bit about the physics PhD programs and say that it's actually very tough to get good jobs in the physics department because first of all, these schools are unlike the basic sciences school are unlike the engineering schools in the US. The engineering sciences schools, a lot of people studying, there are a lot of funding coming in. But sciences are much smaller. The number of faculty members are much smaller, which means that the number of academic options for graduating PhD students are also much smaller. So what happens is that people actually take a long time to finish the PhDs because they're excruciatingly tough. It takes 6-7 years to finish a PhD in physics. Maybe there are people who finished earlier, but they should be superstars. And then you do a postdoc for many, many years in order to become an academic. So it'll be interesting to see where Chitraang lands up. But again, heads up to people who want to study physics that it's a tough course. If you want to go to US, study physics, chemistry, and mathematics, it's very, very tough to get a PhD and create an academic career. And that's unlike engineering, where you can finish a PhD, and if you have some good research papers, you can easily become a professor. That's not difficult. 2015, Satwat Jagwani was a topper. Again, Satwat too, the same interesting scenario where he studies computer science in IIT Bombay for 2 years and then decides to go to MIT. And looks like he finishes 2 years, but he's treated like a person who finished the first year at MIT when he goes as a transfer student. So overall, he has spent around 5 years to do his undergrad degree across IIT Bombay and MIT. After that, he also goes on to do his master's in engineering from MIT. And that's the advantage. I've talked about this in one more video in my channel that sometimes the MS degree in most universities take at least 1.5 or definitely 2 years. That's really the standard. But then as soon as you finish undergrad, if you want to go in for a master's degree, like a master of engineering, right, you can actually get a master's degree exactly within 1 year. So that's really what Satwat has done. That's fantastic in terms of where he is right now. He's worked as a software engineer intern, and then he currently is working in San Jose in Cadence Design. So this company is very close to where I lived in San Jose. I was working in San Jose till April of this year. So the choice of the company is interesting because after such a background, Cadence is pretty much into more of the MEM space, fabrication space. It's more in the electrical electronics engineering space and not exactly in the space of computer science. So I'm a little surprised with the choice of company Cadence Design, just focus more on fabs and all that. But again, each person their own. And I wish Satwat the best as he continues his career. But I feel that a lot more is happening in the space of AI, ML in the traditional big companies. So I hope he makes a switch to one of the traditional big software tech companies. I think that's where the actual career growth is. Aman, 2016 topper. So he finishes his undergrad in computer science from IIT Bombay. And you can see a trend, right? Most students go to IIT Bombay after 2012. They study for the computer science in the program, and a couple of them go to MIT and so on. But in Aman's case, he finishes undergrad, then goes on to Stanford, does a master's in computer science. That's remarkable. I don't think Stanford offers funding for people who do the master's in computer science. That's very unlikely. It's actually not that difficult to get a master's in computer science at Stanford because they just have a large intake. And people across the world are able to make it. In terms of where he is right now, it looks like he worked for, I think, around just more than a year at Rubrik in Bangalore before he went for his master's program. And I think that's absolutely fantastic because I think you can save up some money by working in India, then go for a master's program. And life is not just education one after the other. It's not just you do an undergrad and go for a MS or a PhD. You can also work for a couple of years and then do your master's and PhD. That's totally okay. A lot of people in the US, you can see many of them actually go for an undergrad in their 30s. And many of them tend to be in their like late 30s when they are coming for a PhD program because they've spent a lot of time working. And many of them work for a couple of years after the undergrad and then do their PhD program. So I know of a person who was one of my good friends, an undergrad from MIT. He was working in Samsung Electronics in Korea. He spent 3 years working in Samsung Electronics and then went to Carnegie Mellon for a PhD. So I think it's very common. So kudos that Aman actually worked for at least a year. And he's studying at Stanford. I'm sure he'll get great jobs after this. Looks like he's an engineer at a company called Glean. Great. So it's great that people like Aman are studying at Stanford, and hats off in terms of him having great job opportunities in the future. Sarvesh, again, like I said, no surprise that he's doing a BTech in computer science. He looks like he's done some research internship in Google India. He's working, he just graduated in 2021. He's working in a company called Optiver as a quantitative researcher. He's based in Europe. So something about the past couple of years after Trump took over is that it's almost impossible to get H-1B visas, especially if you're not a US student. So if you're from India, you're finishing undergrad in India and then applying for H-1B visa, it's almost impossible to get. So companies have realized it. So it's almost close to zero probability of you finding a job directly in US as soon as you finish undergrad in India. So what really happens in many companies is they send you to another office, probably in UK, Europe, or Canada, and ask you to work there for maybe 2 years. Watch your performance. If you're doing really well, they would move you on something called L1 visa from the subsidiary to the US. So in the past, there used to be people who would go to the US directly after studying in India, from the IITs and IIMs and so on. That's totally stopped after Trump took over. And even after the new administration has come in, the policy has not changed. So again, love the fact that people like Sarvesh are working in places like Amsterdam, in Europe and so on. But I'm sure that these people will ultimately either go on to do a master's degree or come back to India and work sometime in the future. Let's see how things pan out. 2018 onwards, these people are not yet graduated, right? I mean, I think Pranav probably just graduated, not sure where he is right now. But Pranav again did undergrad in computer science. If you're looking at, I don't know where exactly he is at this moment, which company has opted for. 2019, again, he's studying computer science from IIT Bombay, not surprising. Karthikey Gupta, wishing these folks all the best as they continue to study at IIT Bombay. 2020, interesting that this person got rank 1 and decided not even to attend the IITs, just decided to move on to MIT. So you can see that in the span between 2011 to 2022, this is the third person who's decided to join an MIT rather than IIT. I personally think, having interacted with lots and lots of IIT students, MIT students, having recruited at MIT and the best schools in the US as part of Cisco recruiting, I've also been to various IIT campuses and recruited people during my time working in Samsung. I don't think it's much of a difference in terms of studying at MIT or IIT. But then if you have full scholarship at US universities for undergrad, it's a no-brainer. You want to get a different experience. You want to go abroad. But IITs are second to none, especially the undergrad programs are top-notch. So again, IITs are excellent. They've got a fantastic reputation, and they're as good as MIT and Stanford any day. So if you look at Chirag, he's right now a sophomore. So the way it works is the first year is called fresher. then sophomore, then junior, and then senior. So Chirag is right now a second year student at MIT. He's planning to major in physics and mathematics, along with a minor in astronomy. So clearly, if you want to study physics, it makes no sense to go to IIT and study computer science. You probably go elsewhere, and MIT is a great place to study physics. So almost, I think 80 to 90% of people who have switched from IIT to MIT in the undergrad program or transferred have tried to major in physics. So they have extraordinary interest in physics. So it looks like Chirag is following in their footsteps. At the same time, I also do mention that doing a PhD in physics just comes up with its own challenges. Hopefully, these people are aware of what they're doing. Okay, so the write-up on his website, he says that he chose to attend MIT over IIT because he thought he was a better fit with the culture of MIT rather than IIT. I really don't know what that means. He says he's inclined to study physics, and MIT has much better facilities, probably because I think the physics department at the IITs again suffer the same problem. There's more funding for engineering and less for the sciences. So again, clearly you will meet better people at MIT in physics compared to IIT faculty members, because the best of students and professors do come to MIT compared to the best of Indians joining IIT. IIT is more research oriented. That may be fair. I heard the industry, IITs are industry oriented or package oriented. No, I think that's not fair, because I think IITs are both industry oriented and research oriented. If you want to study abroad, you can easily go to IITs and go to the best of universities of the world for your master's and PhD programs. But if you're a student who wants a job, who doesn't want to study further, that's fine. You will get good jobs. So I think it's unfair to say that IITs are industry oriented. And he says that he could study with his physics-oriented peers across the world, and he can connect with probably universities across the world by studying at MIT. Yeah, that's for sure. MIT is more global, definitely, than the IITs. You probably also meet a lot of foreign students. You develop your communication skills and so on. I mean, there are a lot of soft skills you gain by going abroad. So if you get a full scholarship, it makes absolute sense. But if you're spending money from your pocket, it's super difficult to study at places like MIT, because it costs probably like $70,000-$80,000 a year, $50,000-$60,000 for tuition, around $20,000 for living expenses and rooming and all that. Housing is super expensive in the Cambridge MIT region, so you're probably spending $80,000 a year for 4 years, around $320,000 for 4 years. Nobody can afford it unless you're super rich. But looks like he did get some sort of funding which made his life much easier. So he talks about that in the second paragraph, where he says that extremely affluent families can pay like $320,000 for 4 years. They can easily go to MIT, but then if you get a full scholarship, you can go to MIT. But then otherwise, it just makes more sense to go to MIT for your master's rather than for your undergrad, because you can get your undergrad done for way cheaper at IITs. Even though it seems expensive by Indian standards, the fees at IIT is a fraction of the fees at the universities abroad. 2021. Again, this person was a topper in the advanced and mains. He's studying computer science at IIT Bombay. Mridul Agarwal, all the best, Mridul. I'm sure you'll do well in your career, and you're among the highest ever percentage in the IIT JEE exams. It's fantastic. Now, I can see a reason why people choose IIT Bombay. It's because they have extraordinarily well-funded cultural festival called Mood Indigo. But I don't think that should be a reason for you choosing IIT Bombay. I think the student scene is all great. I think a little bit of mania that people choose IIT Bombay because they want to be there. I studied IIT Bombay, and the reason why I chose IIT Bombay was that when I visited the campuses of other IITs, I just felt that the people in Mumbai were way more friendlier than some of the other locations. This is the location at Powai is also very close to the airport. It's not easy. It's not difficult to get to the airport. It's also super close to a place called Kanjurmarg, which is where the railway connectivity is. So it's well connected in lots of ways. And Mumbai being the financial center of the country, there is also lots and lots of jobs. I think IIT Delhi is also as good as IIT Bombay. It's for sure as good. But I just felt that the temperature in Delhi and all that was pretty dry, and it's not something that suited me. So I thought the Bombay temperature was more equatorial, and it was also more mild because it was closer to the ocean. So that's one of the big reasons why I chose IIT Bombay. But I think there are lots of reasons for choosing IIT Bombay. There are a lot of toppers in the top 100 ranks tend to choose IIT Bombay. And even if they don't get computer science, they choose electrical engineering, electronics engineering, and so on. I think that's a mistake. They should just choose computer science in whichever IIT they get, whether it's IIT Bombay, Delhi, Kanpur, Kharagpur, or Madras, and so on. As far as connectivity goes, it shouldn't matter for students because any company which comes to IIT Bombay pretty much comes to Delhi, Kanpur, Kharagpur, Madras, Guwahati, all the top IITs. So companies coming to campus should not be a reason for not choosing a certain IIT. So there are good reasons for choosing IIT and also bad reasons for choosing IIT. Maybe I'll cover that in a future video. 2022 was super interesting. This is the last of my presentation. Shishir tops the exam and decides to join the BTech program at IISc rather than join IIT Bombay. I thought that was super interesting. This is probably the first time in the history of the IIT exam that somebody chooses not to join an IIT after topping the exam and decides not to go abroad. So he has chosen IISc, which is very interesting. Shishir is from Bangalore, so I think it's a good reason for choosing IISc, which is also in Bangalore. He's going to be super close to his home for sure. In terms of the closing and opening ranks, I just put a list of what the closing and opening ranks are. And IISc, typically the BTech program in math and computing, it closes with the rank 240, which is after Bombay, Delhi, Madras, Kanpur. So a topper choosing IISc is a little surprising. So I was curious to know what the reasons were, and it looks like Shishir mentions that computer science is more job oriented and his interest in research, development, and entrepreneurship. Again, I think that's not correct. I think IITs offer job orientation for people who want jobs. They offer research orientation for people who want to do research and development. So you can get the best of both worlds by going to any of the top IITs, and even second gen, third gen IITs are equally good as the top IITs, and they're as good as the top IITs infrastructure, faculty, exposure, curriculum, learning. So I think students sometimes are not being wise by choosing to ignore the second gen and third gen programs out there, the IIT programs. But coming back to Shishir, I think IIT Bombay, for example, computer science is excellent. In fact, if you want to study abroad, if you want to do a PhD, if you're applying to universities, I think there's an intrinsic sense that most toppers go to the top IITs, the Bombay, Delhi, Madras, Kanpur, Kharagpur, and so on. So if you're applying from there, you actually have a higher chance of getting in because a lot more of the people who work in admissions are very, very comfortable with these students because they've seen these students apply in the past, get in, do very well, become professors in the future. So there's a well-established path for coming from IITs, doing a PhD, becoming a professor in the future. So that's well recognized. So if you're breaking that order, doing something by yourself, it's actually going to require a lot more effort from Shishir's end to prove himself. IISc again is second to none, but again the program is very new, so it will take time to establish itself. So I'm personally a little surprised by the decision. And when it comes to R&D, yeah, IISc is as good as IITs. I don't think that IITs are worse than IISc or IISc is worse than IITs. I think they're all equally good. But in terms of entrepreneurship, that kind of links more to jobs. So if Shishir says that he doesn't like the course being job oriented, but also wants to be in entrepreneurship, I think that doesn't make too much sense. In fact, IIT Bombay has lots of centers for entrepreneurship. There's something called SINE, SIGN, which is an entrepreneurship cell. The E-cell in IIT Bombay is probably the best in the country. It's as I think the ones at IIT Delhi is probably as good as IIT Bombay or slightly in the second position compared to IIT Bombay. But again, IIT Bombay is the number one place in terms of entrepreneurship, and IIT Powai is the head of the group. So I think in terms of entrepreneurship, that's a great place to be in. Among all the IITs, IIT Bombay is probably number one. That's my sense, and IIT Bombay is probably a close now number one too. So again, I don't think that's enough of a reason. So again, I wish people like Shishir would actually talk to more people and make these decisions. And I'm actually trying to create a website to actually help students in terms of helping them make career decisions and understand what the strengths are. But I want to talk about this in the future once I get more clarity in terms of getting that website up and running. And I'm targeting all IIT students to join this network in the future before I open it to all engineering students within India. But again, let me come back to that much later. So if you like this video, let me know. Pass some comments in the section below, in the comment section, and then click the like button or subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. It was a pleasure talking to you folks, and cheers. We'll connect again later in the next video. Bye-bye.